When I married Daniel, I thought I had found the safest place in the world. He wasn't flashy or loud, not the type who drew attention when he entered a room, but his quiet presence had always been the one thing that settled my restless heart. He worked hard, loved me with a gentleness I'd never known before, and built a life where I never had to question his loyalty. Friends would often tell me I was lucky, and deep down I knew they were right. But knowing you're blessed and acting like you are blessed are two different things. Over the years, comfort turned into routine. Routine turned into boredom. I hate admitting that out loud, but it's the truth. Somewhere along the way, I stopped noticing the small things Daniel did, the way he made sure my car was fueled every Monday, or how he stayed up late helping me when I had work deadlines. He was there, always steady, but instead of cherishing him, I began comparing him to things I didn't even want. Flashier men, more adventurous relationships, the kind of stories my friends gossiped about. And in my worst moments, I convinced myself that Daniel was too plain for the life I thought I deserved. One night, I went out with friends for dinner. I don't know if it was the wine or the attention I was getting from people around the table, but I let myself say something cruel. Something reckless. Something that still burns in my chest even as I write this. I laughed and said, "Sometimes I wonder if I married the wrong man. Daniel's good, but he's so boring. If he ever left me, I'm not sure I'd even notice." Everyone laughed, and in that moment, I felt powerful, like I had entertained them with a joke. But the words weren't a joke. They came from a place inside me I never wanted to acknowledge. I didn't know he was standing there. I didn't know he had come early to pick me up because he didn't want me driving home after drinks. I didn't see him behind me, holding his jacket in his hand, frozen in the doorway as those words left my mouth. I only saw his face when the table fell silent, when the laughter turned awkward, and my friend's eyes shifted to him in guilt. My heart dropped. I can still see the way his eyes looked, like something had shattered behind them. "Daniel," I whispered, but he didn't say a word. He just turned around and walked away. I ran after him, heels clicking against the pavement, calling his name into the night. But he didn't stop. Not once. The taillights of his car were the last thing I saw before the darkness swallowed him. And deep down, I knew, I had said the one thing that could never be unsaid. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, phone clutched in my hand, calling Daniel over and over again. Every call went straight to voicemail. Every message I sent came back unread. By morning, the weight of my own words pressed down so heavily that I could hardly breathe. I drove to his office, but his secretary told me he hadn't come in. I drove to his mother's house, but she looked at me like I had broken something sacred and said softly, "He doesn't want to see you right now." That phrase, "right now," gave me hope. I thought maybe if I gave him a little time, things would heal. But I didn't realize how deep the wound already was. 2 days later, Daniel finally came home. His eyes were tired, his clothes wrinkled, but his face was unreadable. He didn't yell. He didn't rage. That almost hurt worse. He sat down across from me in the living room and spoke in a voice I barely recognized. I heard every word, "Anna." Every single word. "And the worst part is, you meant it." I started crying, shaking my head, begging him to believe I was drunk, careless, anything but honest. But he didn't flinch. He just looked at me with a calmness that felt colder than anger. "You don't build a marriage on words like that," he said finally. "I've spent years loving you the best way I know how. Quietly. Consistently. And I thought that was enough. But you stood there and told the world that I wasn't. That I was nothing more than boring. That you wouldn't even notice if I was gone." His voice cracked on that last part, and I reached for him, but he pulled away like my touch burned him. I realized then that I hadn't just embarrassed him in front of strangers, I had cut the very heart out of a man who had only ever tried to protect mine. That night he packed a suitcase. Not everything, just enough to make it clear he was leaving. I followed him from room to room, pleading, promising, swearing I would never take him for granted again. "Daniel, I didn't mean it," I sobbed. You're my everything, please, don't go. He paused at the doorway, his hand tightening on the suitcase handle. For a moment, I thought he might turn back. For a moment, hope flickered. But then he whispered, I believed you loved me. Now I know you don't. And with that, he walked out. The silence that filled our home after the door shut was unbearable. Every corner screamed his absence. The half-empty closet, the missing toothbrush, the untouched side of the bed, I stared at them like they were grave markers. Because in a way, they were. I had buried the man I loved with nothing more than a cruel sentence I couldn't take back. And the worst part? I knew he was never coming back. Weeks passed, but they felt like years. I called, I wrote letters, I even showed up at his office only to be told politely but firmly that he didn't want to see me. His friends avoided me. His family wouldn't answer my questions. It was as if Daniel had erased me from his life overnight. I thought maybe time would soften him, that one day he would remember the love we once shared and forgive me. But instead, the silence stretched on, growing heavier with each day. Then the papers arrived. Divorce papers. My name was printed in cold black ink, staring up at me from the envelope as if mocking me. There was no note, no explanation, just the finality of his decision. My hand shook so badly I could hardly hold the pen. I wanted to fight, to beg him to reconsider, but deep down I knew I had broken something that couldn't be fixed. With every careless word, I had told him he wasn't enough. And now he was giving me exactly what I said I wouldn't notice, his absence. I signed them through blurred tears. When I set the pen down, it felt like closing a door that would never open again. The house that once echoed with Daniel's laughter was now nothing but hollow rooms and shadows. I caught myself reaching for my phone at night, instinctively wanting to tell him about my day, only to remember he would never pick up. I cooked meals he used to love, but there was no one left to sit across from me at the table. The loneliness was relentless, and it was mine alone to carry. The last time I saw him was in passing. I was at the grocery store, clutching a basket of things I didn't even need, when I spotted him down the aisle. He looked healthier, calmer, like a man who had finally set down a burden. For a second our eyes met, and my chest tightened with everything I wanted to say. I'm sorry. I miss you. I still love you. But he simply gave me a polite nod, like you would to a stranger, and walked past. No hesitation. No second glance. That was the moment I realized the truth. I will never see Daniel again, not the man who once held me as if I was his world, not the husband who believed in forever. He's gone. And all I have left are the words I can never take back. Words that cost me the only person who ever truly loved me. Now when people tell me I was lucky to have him, I don't correct them. I just smile faintly, because they're right. I was lucky. I had the kind of love people spend their whole lives searching for. But I let it slip through my fingers for the sake of a laugh. And that is a mistake I'll spend the rest of my life paying for.